How are you all? I'm Mona Lisa Joshi back again with another episode of Mona Lisa's Talk Show. This is season 3, episode 8 happening today, and I have another interesting guest with me who is also another horror writer because it's been like 2 3 episodes that I've done with some of the best selling horror writers, and today I have one of the acclaimed Indian horror writers, Abhirup Dhar, with me. So, welcome, Abhirup. How are you?
Thank you, Mona Lisa, for having me at your talk show. It's lovely being here. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, and I'm so honored to have you on my
The
show
pleasure is
today.
all mine, Mona Lisa. Looking forward.
And first of all, before starting, I would like to congratulate you for your new release book, Karma. And I can see that you have started creating some buzz through social media. So, all the very
Mhm.
best for this book because I think all of your books have done so amazing. So, this is also going to rock, I'm sure.
Thank you so much for your good wishes. Fingers crossed. Looking forward.
Absolutely. Now, let's jump into the session and let's begin with some Q&A and let's know you better through the journey of this interview.
Sure.
So, all set?
All set.
Okay. So, as I was going through your profile, I noticed that you have written a book on ghost hunter Gaurav Tiwari. So, this caught my attention, and I wanted to discuss this with you because I'm quite a big fan of this genre, horror. And I've been noticing some of the journey of Gaurav Tiwari through the time when that his news of demise came through the
Mhm.
newspaper, and it became a very
Mhm.
big news, and so how mysteriously he died in such circumstances. So I really would like to know that what inspired you to write this book on Gaurav Tiwari, and why did you choose this topic only?
So, the biggest inspiration to write the book on Gaurav Tiwari, Ghost Hunter Gaurav Tiwari, was Gaurav Tiwari himself. So, in 2016, when he ended his life, and it was all over the news. It shook me because I was following him. I used to look forward to his shows, the ones he did, MTV Girls Night Out. There were a few others. So I used to follow him, and I was always a horror buff. So when I came to know about his demise, I was shaken. Kind of was very difficult for me to understand that why would a man who is getting all the limelight and doing something great, something different, would end his life. So circa 2020, it was, I remember, before the pandemic struck, I was working on a book called The Belvoir Brook Haunting, and one of the characters was a psychic. So I wanted to, kind of speak to a real life paranormal investigator and try to understand the nitty gritties and, the characteristics a psychic or a paranormal investigator possesses. So I got in touch with Indian Paranormal Society and I spoke to Meghna, Siddharth, few other people there. And then when we had this discussion, we came to know that, I came to know rather, that a book on Gaurav Tiwari had never been written. And I was shocked. I was like, what exactly are you talking about? Because he was a personality to reckon with. And then, one discussion led to another. Then I spoke to my literary agent, Suhail Mathur of the Book Bakers, and then things happened. And today, as we speak, it's been 4 years, and Ghost Hunter Gaurav Tiwari has become such a phenomenon. Mona Lisa.
Okay. So have you met him personally otherwise?
I did not meet him personally, very honestly, but I was very much following his Facebook page, and we kind of exchanged a few messages. But that was a long time ago.
Okay. So this book was well received, and after that, it has also again gone for reprint by
Yes,
some
so it
other
was first
publisher, I
published by
guess.
Westland, and then later Rupa took it up because Westland was going through a management change, right? So let me tell you that even before the book got published, it was acquired for a screen adaptation, you know, and
Okay.
I have been keeping my readers updated about the screen adaptation as well. So hopefully, people will be able to see the web series very soon, maybe by next year. But coming to the book, when it released via Westland, it was such a phenomenon, and people sat up and took notice about this book. It's been great so far. Even till today, I receive a lot of messenger messages, on Messenger and on WhatsApp, and a lot more people talk about it, and it's growing. It's growing from what it was just an idea. When I spoke to Indian Paranormal Society, Meghna, Siddharth, and the folks out there, it was just an idea, and then it became a book, a phenomenon, and people started to read it, talk about it. The word of mouth was very strong, Mona Lisa, for Ghost into God of Diwali, and that helped me a lot.
Okay. And did you have to take any special permission from his family or something to bring out this? It must be a
I
biography,
did
I
not
guess.
speak, right. I did not speak to his family directly. I did it via Indian Paranormal Society. They did have a word with his
Okay.
parents, and it was okay with them.
Okay.
And we did not touch upon the personal angles a lot. Like,
Hmm.
fine, if you have read the book, and if readers who are watching this show
Hmm.
have read Ghost and the God of Diwali, they would agree that it's more about the investigations that he undertook and less about
Okay.
his personal life. I did touch upon, but then I'd say not on the whole, and that was done quite consciously, Mona Lisa.
Okay. Lovely. And this is so interesting that the book is still doing so amazingly and people are
Mhm,
still, connecting with you. That's something very rare that happens. So it's amazing,
mhm,
really. Okay, now another thing that caught my attention is that I was reading in your profile that Times of India has
mhm,
mentioned that you are a disguised figure in the realm of horror literature. Now, why is
mhm.
that? I want to know. And I also was wondering that in the times of social media, how can you be a disguised figure?
I think it was not disguised figure; it was a distinguished figure, as far as I know.
Okay,
So,
okay,
Times
I
of India,
might
yes,
have
it's more of a
misread it.
distinguished figure. Yeah, absolutely. So, but again, since you have mentioned disguise, I'd also like to tell you that I like to maintain a lower profile than others. I like to keep my social media profiles private. I'd not say I'm not outgoing. I'm outgoing, but when it comes to my social media profiles, I like to keep it as private as possible, and I like to let my work do the talking. So if you kind of mean it in that way, then maybe I do have a disguise in a way. But Times of India has quoted me as a distinguished figure in horror literature.
Okay,
What else?
my bad. I'm sorry. My apologies. Okay, so I would like to know that how did your journey, start from being a banker to a writer? How did you turn into then a horror writer? So I would like to know the journey.
So I was always a writer first year. Like if I talk about my childhood, I grew up in Darjeeling and in the hills. I was in a boarding school. Since my parents used to reside in Assam and remote parts of Assam. My father was a tea estate manager, so the nearest town was like 50 kilometers away, and there was no good school nearby. So they had to send me to a boarding school, Mount Herman, Darjeeling. So ever since I was a child, I used to write on my notebooks. I used to write stories, and most of them were horror stories. I'd written movie scripts, but very amateurishly, of course, nothing professional. I used to write for the school magazine, for the local magazines as well. So I was always a writer first, being a banker or being MBA or whatever it is, came much later, you know.
Hmm.
So it was in 2010 when I completed my MBA, and there was a 4 months gap between my MBA and the first job. And I was at home because for 4 months, what do I do? I thought, fine, let's write a book. I was also going through a very low phase. So I wrote a book and I just kept to myself. I just kept it to myself. I just wrote it for the sheer joy of writing. That's it, nothing else. Just for the sake of writing. Circa 2013-14, I had started reviewing movies again. So I used to review movies earlier as well, but this time it was a little more professional. It was for a website, and I was in Mumbai at that point of time. So apart from reviewing
Okay.
movies, I got in touch with a few people in the writing world, and I also shared the manuscript with them, and also with a few friends, and they told me it strikes a chord. Why not take it up as uh, a published work? I said, I don't know. I'm not sure about it. But then I started exploring the avenues, and then I thought that fine, why not become a published author and kind of try to understand what it means to be an author apart from being a writer. And that's where the journey began. 2015 was my first book release. Once again with love. Then there was a gap for like 2.5 years, and Stories Are Magical came up, right? And then it was only after 2019, Hold That Breath, that I got into horror. And it's been a rollicking journey after that, because horror is my forte, and I've always loved the genre. And I think for a genre like horror, you need a certain amount of maturity. So I
Yeah.
wanted to debut with horror, but it was not coming up or shaping up very well at that point of time in 2014 or 15 when I was working on a book. So that book happened much later during COVID, when there was this lockdown and I had and work from home option for 2 months. I wrote the Belvoir Brook Haunting. That was based on a book or a story which I had written when I was in school. And I was trying to explore it in 2013 or 14 as well. It was not shaping up well, and I
Okay.
started writing it in 2020 itself, and it released in 2020. That's when I also got in touch with Indian Paranormal Society because I wanted to kind of research on the psychic,
Hmm.
mediums and
Hmm.
paranormal investigation phenomenon. Lisa.
And is there any method that you follow? Like I was interviewing some of the previous writers, they were also all horror writers.
Mhm.
So they had a pattern. Like I was talking to Neil, he said that he prefers. You must be knowing Neil De Silva.
Yes, yes, of course, of course. I
So
know.
he prefers to go to a place where there's some popular legend, urban legend or folklore, or maybe a haunting maybe, and he gets the vibe there and he writes. Similarly, I was talking to Ajinkya. He said no, I shut myself in a room and it's mostly the
Mhm.
dead of the night that he prefers to write. So is there any
Mhm.
procedure or method that you also follow?
So I'm also a working professional apart from being a full-time writer. I say I'm a full-time writer because I write at nights, right?
Okay.
So I do not compromise on my writing because I have got a full-time professional career as well.
Hmm.
So I'll never call myself a part-time writer. I'm a full-time writer because my commitment and my dedication towards writing is as much as my professional life, right? Now, coming to my writing procedure, earlier it used to be quite simple as to go with the flow. But
Hmm.
over the years, I have kind of tried to incorporate the three act structure, you know. Uh, so that's where, I kind of try to do the plotting and all. But very honestly speaking, it does not help in each and every book I work on.
Hmm.
And talking about the routine, I write at nights only, because that's the only time I got.
Hmm.
I come back home. I spend some time with my family, and by 11:45, 12 midnight, I start to write, right, for an hour or so. Does not happen daily, but I make it a point to open my laptop and sit in front of it. At least a discipline is there. It's very important to maintain that discipline. So even if I don't
Correct.
write, I probably open my laptop and I stare at it. I stare at the writing which I've done for the last 4 5 days. I try to do some plotting. I try to do something or the other so that I'm engaged. Or maybe I read a book, something of that sort. So I'm always rooted in the writing world. It's very important to be rooted in the writing world and be, kind of aware of the nitty gritties and also be there. As in, it's very important to be there, very simply put. But if you don't maintain that discipline, it's going to be very difficult for you to write books, Mona Lisa.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, now let's talk about some of your books. You have written this Belvoir Brook Haunting, and
Mhm.
also you have mentioned this book called Hold That Breath. So these are all horror books, right? So I would like to know a little about what kind of plot you have made. And as you were talking about Darjeeling, I was reading the blurb. I think they are mostly based on Darjeeling. The recent one also, I guess, Karma. You have
Mhm.
chosen Darjeeling as your backdrop.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So I grew up in Darjeeling, so I'm very attached to that place. I'm also attached to Assam, remote parts of Assam, Upper Assam, tea estates. I'm attached to Kolkata as well. I love Mumbai. It's about the demand of the story. It's not just about Darjeeling.
Hmm.
Though I love to go to the hills and I take my readers to the hills as well. But it's about the demand of the story. So a book like Karma would be meaningless if I, kind of have the setting in Mumbai or maybe a Delhi, maybe a city. Does not help because the atmospherics, the
Hmm.
world that I build is very different. So it
Okay.
won't help if I have a setting like Kolkata or a city kind of a
Hmm.
setting. A book like Ghost Hunter Gaurav Tiwari is set everywhere. It's set
Hmm.
all around the world, because Gaurav Tiwari had investigated cases in Australia,
Hmm.
right? He investigated cases in Delhi, so many
Hmm.
places. So it's about the demand of the story. But yes, I'm more into, I'd say supernatural horror. There are different subgenres of horror, but I stick to supernatural horror because that's what I enjoy the most. I also enjoy psychological horror, so maybe some psychological horror as well. But supernatural,
Hmm.
paranormal, gothic. So if you read my
Hmm.
books,
Hmm.
and my readers would know that I border a lot on the gothic kind of, subgenre. It's
Okay.
very dark, it's very atmospheric. There's a different world altogether. And you're transported in
Yeah.
a different world. But that's the kind of world
Hmm.
I
Absolutely.
like to escape to. As a person
Okay.
as well. Yeah.
Okay. And I was also noticing that you have mentioned that some of your books, I guess, mostly, I guess, all of them are getting into screen adaptation, and some of
Most
them
of
are
them, yes.
into web
Close to the God
series.
of Diwali for sure. That's being worked on by the filmmakers. I cannot divulge much about a few other things here and there, but I keep my readers updated on social media, the ones who follow me, right? So I let my work speak for itself more than probably creating reels and being in the public domain, because I feel that a writer should also have that I'd say sense of awe. If that sense of awe is missing, when I
Hmm.
grew up, I used to read a lot of books, and it's only the authors whom I used to think about that. What must be this author like? He writes such wonderful books. Ruskin Bond, for example.
Hmm. Hmm.
I used to read Ruskin Bond, and what must be this author like? I never saw Ruskin Bond's photo till
Okay.
I was probably a teenager, but I have to read his books. There has to be a sense of awe. You cannot be in the public domain always. That's what I
Hmm.
believe. So I let my work speak for itself, and probably that's what also works in my favor at times.
Okay.
Monalisa.
That's nice. Okay, now I want to know one thing. That mostly, like while you're writing horror, somewhere people say that you become so deeply involved in the book or with the characters that somewhere it affects you psychologically as well. Also, the elements that you are using for creating that horror. Has it happened with you as well?
Uh, it does. Very honestly, I live in my dream world, but it's very difficult to live in your dream world if you have to pay the bills. So in the morning, I'm a different person when I wake up and I go to office, and when I come back home and spend some time with my family, and then I sit to write. Or in the weekends, I'm a different person altogether. This is me. The real me is different compared to what I probably you know uh, show to the world. It's like not a facade, but a writer has to
Hmm.
do a lot of things these days. It's about donning so many
Hmm.
hats. So I can't be myself when I'm probably managing a team, you know or doing my professional work,
Hmm.
because that demands a different Abhirup, you know, and the writer demands a different Abhirup. So when I'm the
Hmm.
writer Abhirup, I'm different, and I'm definitely into my dream world, and does affect me, but I'd not say psychologically. Very honestly speaking, that would be a very superficial way to put
Hmm.
it. I enjoy my writing. I
Okay.
totally enjoy my writing. When I write a book, I'm totally engrossed into it. I live the characters, and I don't mean it. I just don't mean it. Like I'm not saying it because I just want to mean it. It's
Hmm.
truly what I feel. I kind of visit the world in my mind. When I do the plotting, so I actually live the world, the characters, and it does not affect me. But I definitely talk to them once in a while. And they live with me even after the book is out. Melissa.
Okay. Nice. And the books you are the horror elements, I would like to know that you are using for your books, different kind of, there are so many words to them, like devil, demons, and many other. So do you also research a lot, or it's all purely your imagination based?
Depends on the book. A Ghost Hunter God of Diwali would require a lot of research, which I did. Hauntings, its sequel,
Hmm.
also
Hmm.
required some research, right? Uh,
Hmm.
but if I have to do a fiction like Karma, or
Hmm.
maybe Belvoir Brook Haunting, or Hold That Breath, I kind of go with the flow and I create a world of my own. But again, fiction also requires research at times. So
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
I write a story which is not based or set at a location I've probably never visited. So I have to do some research about it, right? So, for example, I've written a book. Uh, it's based or it's set in Kerala. I've never been to Kerala. I've been to Kerala for work, but I've never
Hmm.
been in those parts of Kerala, right? Or
Hmm.
I've never been in that particular place. But I've done some research for it. So research, yes, it's important. But when I write fiction, it's more about going with the flow and doing the plotting and taking some creative liberties, right?
Okay.
It's not about research kind of a thing. When I write non-fiction like a Ghost Hunter God of Tiwari or maybe a Hauntings or an upcoming book, which I have written. So there, of course, research is involved, and I kind of speak to people. Like for Ghost Hunter God of Tiwari, I spoke to Meghna, Siddharth, the paranormal investigators of Indian Paranormal Society, a lot of times, almost daily. Still in touch with them, right? And try to understand from them their perspectives. I wrote a lot. I probably wrote, rewrote, and then I got back to them. Again, I had to erase a whole lot of words, and then again rewrite, again read, again speak to them. So that's the cycle. It depends on the book, depends on the subject of the book. Analysis.
Okay, that's interesting. So it seems like you are a very serious and disciplined writer, because most of the time I've heard that people mostly prefer like go with the flow and okay,
Maybe I
take a
come
break.
across as very serious. I'm not so serious as well, but yeah, I think I've got a very serious face at times. So that's how it is. Not so serious as well, but yeah, definitely very passionate about my book.
But a disciplined one, obviously, it could be
Yeah,
seen.
I maintain a lot of discipline for sure. I'm very particular about things, and I keep myself updated about the writing world. It's very important to be updated as well.
Okay. And like when it comes to family, you are writing most of the time horror. So does they say ki, but to try something else, always horror, horror, horror? Does it come from them?
My wife was never a horror buff earlier, but after marriage, when I kind of showed her so many horror movies, she loves it now. I mean, she used to watch horror, but then she was never a horror buff kind of a person. But now she's a lot more into horror. She also reads horror now, watches horror, more of a horror person. I don't think it, kind of affects family life as well. It's just a general genre. If romance kind of has its pros and cons, horror also has its pros and cons. It does not have an effect per se, if you ask me. It's not like it's a bad genre if it's got, some kind of an unhealthy kind of,
No, no, I
influence.
was just
That's
talking
very
about
wrong.
bad genre. Yeah. I was just
That's very
trying to
wrong.
say that sometimes people, get scared. Like you are a horror buff, you are
Yeah.
writing, but people around you might get scared. So they try to
Um,
refrain from the.
I don't know about others, but my wife doesn't get scared of me for sure.
That's fine. That's lovely.
Yeah, and my
Interesting.
daughter, she's 4 years old, and like she's also okay. So I watched horror when I was 4 or 5 years old for the first time, and I took to it like a fish in the water. I loved it. I watched those Ramsey movies, Purana Mandir, Dag Bangla, then Raat, Ram Gopal Verma's Raat. And then I read horror, I wrote horror when I was a kid itself. So I don't know if it has any kind of an effect. In fact, I think it's got a good effect on children because people will understand how to overcome fear if they read horror.
Yeah,
If you ask me,
that's true.
that's my
That's true.
version. I don't think it's got a bad impact on anyone. And my daughter
Yeah,
also
because
enjoys horror. Whatever she sees of horror, and of course, it comes with restrictions. I do not show her those gory kind of movies and all, but she enjoys horror, normal horror.
that's nice. And talking about your book Karma, so I want to know that what kind of plans you have with this book, what kind of PR you are planning, and like how much your expectation is with the readers, and what will be the reason that we should pick this book.
So honestly, I'm not into PR. Very, very honestly
Okay.
speaking, I promote my own books. So writer has to don so many hats these days. I promote my own books. I talk about them myself. I, showcase them to my readers who follow me on social media. I do not have a PR, very honestly speaking. I have never taken the help of a PR as well. I think the best PR for anyone, for that matter, is word of mouth. If the book is good, if the story is good, if the writing is good, it will reach out to the desired people and they'll talk about it.
Yeah.
That's what happened with Hold That Breath for me, which was a complete surprise. I did not expect it to do so well. That's what happened with Ghost Hunter God of Tiwari. So Ghost Hunter God of Tiwari still had God of Tiwari in it because he's got a huge fan following. But Hold That Breath, when I got into horror, nobody, there were very few writers who were into horror, and nobody was into the kind of horror I wrote, the gothic types, or the ones which were based on urban legends. It was a big risk at that point of time in 2019. It worked, and how? Because of the word of mouth. Now, when I look back, I'd say The Belvoir Brook Haunting, which came after it, is a better written book than Hold That Breath, right? But Hold That Breath became a phenomenon. Belvoir Brook Haunting released during the pandemic. It had its share of pros and cons. The Kindle did much better than paperback at that point of time because Amazon could not deliver, right? But if I talk about a fan following, Hold That Breath has a fan following more than the Belvoir Brook Haunting, though the latter is a better written book. So it depends on the word of mouth. You never know what clicks with readers. If something clicks with them, it just clicks. And if something does not click with them, it does not click. So for
Right.
PR, I'd say I rely on word of mouth and my readers. Uh, but yes, definitely, I'd love to reach out. I have done book launches. I do book sessions, book signing sessions. I do book events. I'm open to lit fests. But there has to be a mutual respect for me and the lit fest organizer or the event organizer. And that organizer also has to respect horror. I've always seen people who promote, books and events do not respect the genre horror. They think horror is what about scary faces and bhatakti atmas. It's not that. Horror is much more. It's deeper, right? So I have a problem with that. So yeah, I'm very moody as well. At times I'm very moody. I think all authors are moody, so I'm moody. I've been events I have not attended earlier because I thought that the organizer was not respecting the genre well. They were like promoting the book as a thriller. Come on, there is a difference between a thriller and horror. Call it horror, no? Why are you calling it a thriller? Just to reach out to a certain set of people, right? So yes, and talking about karma, since that was the question, I will definitely have a book launch, but a little later. I was planning a book launch in Mumbai, but there were some postponements and clashes of dates. So I'll do a Kolkata book launch maybe in October, most probably. And of course, I'll do book signing sessions. I'll visit bookstores, when the book is out in the bookstores by the middle of this month or by the end of this month, right? And I'll talk about it for sure on social media, but I'll let the work do the talking. Most importantly, Mona Lisa, that's most important for me. And
Yeah.
expectations, I just hope that the person who reads the book enjoys it, has fun, and gets back to me telling me that Abhirup, we want another one. That will motivate me. That's my expectation. That's important.
And I don't know whether you've noticed or not, but I was checking all the blurbs of your book, and I've noticed that Karma also already has got one review, and that was something like, Virup, you have nailed it again, something like this. I
I
mean,
saw it today morning.
yeah.
Saw it today
So
morning, and I was so happy because the first review is very important for a writer. Because very honestly, see, I'm a very self-critical writer. I'm very critical about my work, and
okay.
when a book comes out, I'm very nervous for the what maybe before the release. The 7 days before the release, I have sleepless nights. I literally have sleepless nights.
Oh,
I cannot sleep. I'm I'm confident about the book, but I'm nervous about the reactions of the readers. Will it be that masterpiece I want to write? So that's the question which kind of runs through my mind all the time. So when the first review is out, when the rushes are out, and I come to know that people have kind of reciprocated the hard work I have done, it does feel good. It does feel good. I'm very being honest about it. I'm being very honest about it. Does feel good. So yes, felt good. Let's see. It's too early to tell
yeah, yeah.
about a lot more things about karma, but I'll be keeping you updated and the readers updated as well. So some
Absolutely.
great
Now
things happening.
I'm also following, so I will also watch every social media post that you'll create, and I'll also get a copy. Another thing that I would like to know that like there are so many horror books out there, right? And everybody must have used so many kind of ghost entities that we have already heard of. So how do you keep it different from the other book? Isn't it a challenge? Like already using those kind of entities that we have already heard of, and then you have to create a fresh and authentic story out of it.
So, firstly, my only competition is Abhirup Dhar, nobody else. I'll be very honest about this. I'm not kind of sounding pompous. I'm not very proud. I'm actually quite down to earth in these things. But my only competition is Abhirup Dhar because I think that I write for this author called Abhirup Dhar. I have a different vision.
Okay.
I do not copy anyone else, nobody at all. Even if I used to read Ruskin Bond, his horror books were different. They were about sad ghosts, happy ghosts, and they were never about scary ghosts. But I used to love his books once upon a time. when I was a child. I used to love R.L. Stein. Fear Street series used to be my favorite. Um I loved a few of Stephen King's books. But my style is different. I do not copy anyone. I just have a different vision. I like to write what I feel is missing, or what I feel is, you know, the kind of book I want to read, but I don't get to read.
Hmm.
And I stick to that only. I go with the flow, I do research, whatever it is the kind of book I want to read myself, it's the kind of horror I enjoy myself. I'll not write horror which I don't enjoy. There is a certain kind of horror which I enjoy. There is a certain kind of horror I don't enjoy. I don't enjoy slashers much. I
Hmm.
probably enjoy gothic more, supernatural more, the ones with twists and turns a little more. So I'll stick to that only. I'll not
Hmm.
write slasher. I do not enjoy watching it as well. Right. So I'll just stick to what I want to write. I follow my heart. Even if
Okay.
I plot from my mind, I follow my heart when I conceive the story or the idea.
Okay. That's interesting to know. Okay, so this brings us to the rapid fire round, and it's going
Oh,
to be an interesting one. You have to be monosyllabic as much you can. Okay.
so
Okay,
I'll
so
try.
ready? Okay, so the first question is, do you have any phobia or fear of something?
No, I really don't have any phobia. I don't think so. I'm scared of cockroaches. Yes, I'm scared of cockroaches and lizards.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm scared of cockroaches. I do have a phobia.
Okay. Your favorite horror movie?
The exhaust. There are many, but if I have to name a few, can I keep two or three or just one? Like just
Go
one.
ahead, 2, 3. 2, 3 is
If it's
fine.
only one, The Exorcist, because it's a classic, and I love the others, The Sixth Sense. The others is the best movie script for me. I mean, it
Hmm.
cannot be better than that. It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
love
agree.
Evil Dead. I grew up watching Evil Dead. In India, if I have to talk about horror, I loved Raat, RGB's Raat. I love 1920. These are the movies I enjoyed. You know, Tumbad was good. Three, the
Yeah,
first one, even if it was horror comedy, it was good. But if I have to name one horror movie which is my favorite, The
hmm.
Exorcist, hands down.
Agree. I agree totally. Okay, so what is your go-to pastime?
My go-to pastime. I watch horror movies. That's my pastime. Yeah, anything to do with horror, I enjoy. Absolutely, read horror books or watch horror movies. That's my go-to pastime. Yes, I'm addicted to horror till today. I mean, I was always addicted to horror. I'm still addicted to horror. I crave for something which will kind of have my adrenaline rushing. I have to watch horror. I have to read horror. If I don't have horror content, I go quite crazy. So
Have you
I'm addicted
have
to
you
horror.
seen Hereditary? I have heard a lot of good, about it. Hereditary, the horror movie.
Yeah. That movie was good as well, but of course, different.
Okay, so the next is, if you were a spy, what would be your secret spy name?
If I was a spy, oh god, I don't know. If I was a spy, I don't know because I've never thought it that way. Yeah, but I'd probably want to understand how Stephen King, being the king of horror, in international writing, did what he did, like his journey probably. It's quite inspirational for horror authors, because he did make it big because of the screen adaptations. That's for sure. Carrie in 1976 made him
Hmm.
big. So how did he kind of tread that path? How did he do it? Maybe know a little more about his insightful journey.
Hmm.
Stephen King, yes, definitely. Though I have not read all his books and maybe I've not liked a few books, but his journey is quite inspirational for any horror author.
Okay, so the next is, if you see a ghost for real, what would you say to it?
I'll actually not be scared. I'll be very honest. I'll actually not be scared. I'll probably, tell him that बैठो यार बात करते हैं and let me try to understand what you guys do and tell me one thing, guys. You know, how do you travel? You don't have visa, you don't have passport. I'm sure you can travel across the world. How do you fly out there? And like, what do you guys do in your pastime? Or is it that you are just stuck to one particular place where you died and you can't move out of that place? Just want to understand and maybe research talking to that ghost. I'll not be scared. I don't think
Okay.
so. Because I write so much about them that I don't feel scared. I don't feel that, fear factor, very honestly speaking. Unless that ghost has got long teeth and, long ears and is scary to look at. But if it's a spirit, I'll not be scared.
Okay. So the next one is, do you believe in karma?
Of course, I do. I'm a big believer in karma. I think what you do comes back to you, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. Big believer in it, for sure.
That's true. And the last one is, do you have any secret hobby apart from writing?
Any secret hobby apart from writing? Um, Not really. I can't call it a hobby, but I love dogs, right? I love to be around dogs. In fact, I prefer the company of dogs to human beings till today. It's not a hobby, but yes, I love to
More
do
of
things
an
about.
enthusiast.
Yeah, like I've done rescue missions for stray dogs and all. So that's not a hobby. That's not a charity. It's just
That's a
what I
noble job.
love. Yeah, I love dogs. Absolutely.
That's lovely. So in the end, I would really like to know that if somebody is starting their journey, maybe like we can say as a horror writer, so what are the pros and cons they should look for, and how to keep steady and focused?
So, firstly, it's very important that you read. To be very honest, I don't get so much time to read now because I'm a full time professional and I write full time author as well. But I used to read a lot as a child, and that actually helped. I used to read everything, classics, you name it, Great Expectations, Charles Dickens, Bengali books, uh, R.L. Stein, Enid Blyton, Famous Five, Hardy Boys, just name it, Devdas, everything I used to read. So that helps me a lot, even now, because I read a lot. Even if I can't read so much as I used to then, read a lot, read horror, understand horror. It's very important to understand the demand of the genre. It's not just about Bhatakti Atma, Churel,
Hmm.
Pretatma, and ghosts, witches. No, it's a lot more than that. Can
Hmm.
explore, know about the subgenres of horror. Watch horror movies as well. Helps a lot because the grammar of horror lies in what you watch and what you read. Right?
Hmm.
When you write a horror book, uh, follow your heart. Don't think if this will work or not. Because if you're writing for money, that's wrong. Write for the sheer joy of it first, if it's your first horror book. The commercialization part will happen later. Things will work in your favor if the content is good, if you have made a name. People will sit up and take notice. Publishers will notice. The film producers will notice. It has happened with me. Didn't just happen within a month or so, it took me years. So it will take you years. A lot of patience and perseverance is important. So be ready for that, right? Write from your heart. Let the first book be out. Definitely talk about it, promote it, but don't go overboard. Let the readers do the talking and get back to you. Uh, get a proper feedback. I mean, did it work or not? Right? Very important.
Hmm.
When you write the book, you can probably have a few beta readers as well and kind of know their feedbacks, know their reviews about it. Very important to have a constructive feedback. I'm still open for constructive feedback, and I really think that it's very important to be rooted and grounded and kind of explore the genre. And when I write a book as if I'm still a newcomer. you know I do not let the success go to my head, and I don't let the failure go to my heart. So if the book fails, don't worry. My book has failed as well. My first book had failed. I mean, to make a mark. Once again with love. It was a rom-com. I was self-published at that point of time. The traditional publishers happened much later.
Hmm.
Suhail Mathur, my literary agent from the book bakers, came much later. Right. And then the traditional houses came in. The book publishers after that were big, definitely big and bigger, right after that. And it has been helpful. But the point is that when your book fails, you don't have to worry about it, right? You don't have to worry about it, just write. And success will definitely come to you. But you need to have patience, you need to have perseverance, you need to write straight from your heart. And then, of course, importantly, in today's scenario, get a lit agent. In my time in 2015, I did not have a lit agent at that point of time. I was still, kind of exploring avenues here and there. It took me a while, but if you ask me, it's very important to have a lit agent right now in this scenario, in this today's scenario. It's very important to have a lit agent because a lit agent will represent your book, to the publishers, because these publishers and the big ones, at least, will never accept unsolicited manuscripts.
Hmm. Hmm.
They'll always go through lit agents because they have so many mails that they do not read these mails. Right? They will not read these mails. So they'll definitely read mails from literary agents. And even from them, probably they'll shortlist a few of them. But it's very, very, very important that you have a lit agent in today's scenario. Marisa.
Okay. So that's a lovely advice. I'm sure many of the aspiring writers will take advantage of your advice and they will feel guided. So thank you, Abhirup. Today I really enjoyed conversing with you and gained a lot of insight about the horror world from your perspective, of course, because every horror writer has a different kind of, look out
Of
towards
course.
how they write and how they bring out the books. So enjoyed a lot talking to
I
you.
enjoyed too. Thank you for having me. It was a lovely discussion, Mona Lisa. Take care of
So have
yourself.
a
All
great
the
evening
best.
ahead. Bye.
My best wishes. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
So I was talking to acclaimed horror writer Abhirup Dhar, and his latest book Karma is out now. Go grab it and read it and review it because the movement is, you all know it, #support Indian writers. So do that and also follow my page Mona Lisa's Talk Show. Bye all, take care, have a great evening.